Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to be getting started in 10 seconds. I'm just going to give everyone a little bit more time to join. Great, I'm going to kick off. Hi everyone, welcome to today's ChatGPT for Work 102 webinar, Leveraging AI to Do Your Best Work. My name is Lois and I am your host today, and today's session is a follow-on from last week's 101, where I introduced you to how you can use ChatGPT as an assistant for everyday work tasks. So we looked at 4O, O3, multimodality, and how to leverage tools like search and Canvas. In today's session, I really want to take that one step further. I want to teach you how to use ChatGPT for repeatable outcomes. So rather than just engaging in a single chat, asking a single question and getting a single output, we actually want to use ChatGPT to support workflows that we encounter every week. So today's learning objectives are deep research. What is it and how can it help you with your work? An overview of ChatGPT projects, what they are, how to build one, and also how they are different to GPTs. And of course, the main part of today's session, the last 25 minutes, I will be building a GPT live and giving you some best practices for how to build one. Same as last week, I'm joined by several of my OpenAI colleagues who will be answering and moderating your questions from the Q&A feature, which is to the right of your screen. A quick note before we start. Some of my demos might not match your specific role and your specific industry, but I really want to encourage you that as I move through these demos today, you reflect and think about how you could potentially apply that model, capability, feature, scenario to your world. To kick off, I want to introduce you to deep research in ChatGPT. Deep research is a new agentic capability that can handle complex, multi-step research tasks. If to date you are currently completing any type of research activity, I want you to explore deep research this week. Deep research is actually powered by our latest reasoning model, O3. But this capability has been specifically optimized for web browsing and data analysis. So what this means is it is really great at going out to the web, scouring a ton of sources, analyzing the sources and synthesizing the information, pulling it back into ChatGPT and creating a clear report with citations. So this is going to be ideal for industries like finance, policy, marketing, and really any time you need to do a detailed piece of research or deeply understand a topic at work, this is the capability I want you to do. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump in and I'm going to show my first demo. I'm going to use a specific scenario that's actually relevant to me. So in my role, I need to spend a lot of time understanding specific customers, how they're using AI in a bid to offer better consultancy. So instead of manually researching on the internet and scouring sources to do with a specific customer, I am going to use deep research. Jumping into ChatGPT now. I'm going to grab my first prompt and I'm going to walk you through this prompt and the steps we need to take to trigger deep research. Entering this into the chat window, here I am saying that I am researching how the financial industry uses artificial intelligence, and I'm doing this research for an upcoming customer discussion. I want a detailed analysis of how AI is being leveraged specifically in finance. I want deep research to address the following: key areas of adoption, key areas of application, the technologies involved, industry examples and use cases, so specifically how AI is being used in the finance industry, any regulatory and ethical considerations, and any challenges. I'm then being very clear that I want the information presented in a well-structured and easy-to-read document. Where appropriate, I want credible sources to be cited, and I want news articles to explain key points. I then want this summary to end with a concise overview and some key takeaways. So again, I'm being very specific about what I'm working on. I have included the specifications and exactly the areas I want deep research to address. And then, as with all great prompts, I'm being very explicit about the expectation, so the output that I'm looking for. To engage in deep research, we toggle on deep research. That will turn blue, and then we will send it across. Now, please note when you engage with deep research, the first thing you'll notice is you will get a series of clarifying questions as the response. Deep research has been designed to ask these clarifying questions so that it has all of the detail it needs ahead of starting that complex task. Bear in mind that deep research can take anywhere from a couple of minutes to around 30 minutes to actually aggregate all of the information and create the report. What we're going to do is we're going to jump in and we're going to answer these questions. So the first one, is there any specific geographic focus? I'm going to say the EU and the US. Second question, should the examples and case studies include both traditional finance institutions and fintech startups? I'm going to say traditional. And is there a preferred time horizon? So trends that are going to occur in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to say 5 years. I'm really curious what deep research brings back. We simply respond to those questions, and then you'll get a statement of intent. So deep research will respond and say, great, I'm going to go away. I'm going to run an analysis and understand how financial institutions are leveraging artificial intelligence. And I'm going to come back and populate that for you in a document. What you'll notice is a loading bar will appear in the center of the screen and indicate its progress through the task. Again, this can take anywhere from a couple of minutes to 30 minutes. So what we're going to do is, because we don't have time necessarily to sit here and watch this, I'm going to take you through an example that I prepared earlier, exactly the same prompt, so that we can observe the output. Let's scroll down and let's come to this chat here. And again, just to recap, this was exactly the same prompt. We responded to the clarifying questions. And here we have this final research report. What's great about this output is you can see that deep research completed the activity in 13 minutes. It observed 43 sources and ran 140 searches. What's incredible about deep research is this type of activity and research could take one human anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days. So deep research is able to condense that activity into potentially 30 minutes, or in this case, 13. When I click on this section here, I'm taken to the activity view, and the activity view outlines every step that deep research took to get to the final outcome. Similar to a chain of thought, I can actually go through and I can observe what deep research did. I'm also able to access all of the sources that it looked at to create this report. Again, coming back to the idea of human in the loop, it is incredibly important to check the work. I would strongly encourage you that the time you save creating the report, you reallocate a certain amount of time to Really proofread the output to check the activity and to fact check the sources. That is where your time should be spent if you are using AI to create a really comprehensive report. Let's take a look at this report in detail. So we can see that we have AI applications in finance in the US and the European market. We have an introduction, and again, the sources have been cited directly in this paper. We have some key areas of application. So we have things like algorithmic trading and investment, risk management, fraud detection, customer service, and chatbots. So these are top-level AI use cases. So if I was about to start speaking to a customer, a finance customer, and I was starting to consult on how they can be using AI, this type of research is going to be invaluable to me to make decisions and to be more informed. Now, this is a really long report, so I'm not going to go through it word for word, but you can see that the sections, again, really comprehensive, and it allows me to really dig into this industry and the use cases. So scrolling all the way to the bottom, I can go back and I can explore the sources, and I can also continue to chat with ChatGPT and get a more refined output. So if this document is too long and I want it condensed into the high-level bullet points, or I want a shorter summary, all you need to do is ask. Great. So coming away from deep research, I want to talk a little bit more about projects and then GPTs. A typical workflow might look something like coming into ChatGPT and kicking off a piece of research. So in this example, I'm preparing for a customer engagement. Then what I might want to do is create a project for that customer engagement so that my deep research chat, any meeting preparation, any chats I have in ChatGPT that relate to that engagement can then be grouped into a project. Then once we have created that project, maybe there is a specific task we might want to automate, and that is why we start to build a GPT. So coming away from this chat here on the left, I want to talk a little bit more about projects. I briefly touched on it in 101, but a project is really the space for you to organize and streamline your work. Projects are really designed to help the individual, and what it's trying to do is aggregate chats, help you maintain context, and to allow you to do that in a single workspace. So here's how it works. Let's take this project, for example, Momentum Money. Again, let's imagine this is the customer that I'm about to talk to about finance and AI use cases. Projects allows you to group chats, files, and custom instructions in one place, which makes it easier to really manage specific tasks. So this week, I want you to think about something that's going on in your world at work, and I want you to create a project. For example, you might be planning a team offsite, you might be doing campaign analysis, financial modeling, a marketing campaign, whatever it is, create the project and start to group files and chats into one place. You can see here that I have a chat that specifically relates to this engagement that I have dragged and dropped into here. Please note that by clicking the three dots, you can simply add a chat to your specific project. What you will have noticed is I have updated specific files that relate to this engagement. And if I click on those files, you can see that in preparing for this customer engagement, I have my sales forecast. I have a meeting agenda and call notes from a previous call. I have my account plan, and I also have my training plan as well. What's great about adding files to a project is all of the chats that you add into the project, those chats will have access to this context. So that is really helpful. Really great way to group items together and to access context. Let's talk a little bit about custom instructions within projects. Custom instructions allows you to define how the project should operate. So specifically, you can guide the project on how to act. Maybe you want it to act as a project manager, you want it to respond in a specific way, you might want it to respond in a specific language, or you might want it to reference specific documents. These instructions, again, apply to all chats within the project. If I click on these instructions, you can see in this example, I've said, you are an account project manager. You are responsible for understanding all documents provided to you to support strategic account planning, management, and opportunities for upsell. Respond in plain English and keep responses friendly, factual, and professional. What we can do is we can continue to work in the project, we can edit the project, we can continue to add files and also remove files at any time. It's really easy to create a project. All you need to do is hit New Project, and that will allow you to specify the name. Great, so moving away from projects, I now really want to spend the bulk of today's session in helping you to build a GPT. So GPTs can be thought of as customized assistants for handling specific repeatable tasks. You can see all of the GPTs that I use in any given day on the left-hand side. For example, professional writing coach is one of my favorite. I upload a piece of text or a writing task into the writing coach, and I ask for specific feedback. This GPT specifically has been designed to act as a coach, and so will give a standardized output every single time. Incredibly helpful and a really great way for me to get better writing and coaching rather than always leaning on a colleague to help me with my reviews. GPTs are powered with instructions, so similar to projects, knowledge, and also have the ability to connect into external systems. And this is through something called an action. Let me give you a specific example for your role. So for sales, for example, you could create a GPT to help you craft compelling pitches. For engineering, you could create a GPT to help you debug code. You can see there is a coding assistant here on the left. If you're in finance, a GPT could standardize the analysis of a specific financial document. And finally, if you're in product, you could create a GPT to help you develop either a brand tone of voice or a detailed product roadmap and timeline. You will have noticed that I clicked on Explore GPTs, and this took me to the GPT store. The GPT store is a great place to explore GPTs that have been created by others. Again, same as 101, your screen may look different to mine, and depending on your access level and what your organization has provisioned, you may or may not have access to third-party GPTs. To navigate the GPT store, you can search for a GPT if you have the name of the GPT, or you can toggle between these topic titles. So we have writing, productivity, research and analysis, and it's very easy to click on a GPT, review the GPT, which has a description and the capabilities, and you can also start a chat with the GPT. I would strongly encourage you to reach out to team members, to reach out to your ChatGPT admin team, to understand how your organization is using GPTs and if they have any recommendations for GPTs that have been created within your specific workspace. What I want to do is quickly show you how a GPT works. I'm using a GPT that already exists. I provide it with some information, and I want you to observe the output. Here, I'm going to use the professional writing coach and I am going to upload a blog post and I want specific feedback on this blog post. So let's see how this GPT does. This blog post that I have created is grammatically incorrect. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the GPT to give me feedback on this email. It's then going to ask me to provide the text. So here is the blog post. I am going to send that across, and this is the response that I get from the GPT. This GPT is designed to coach me and will give the same standardized output every day. It is telling me what's working well. It's offering some suggestions for improvement and is even giving me an option which is more polished, allowing me to either copy and paste that, rewrite it, and I can also extract this and then engage with Canvas to even enhance my writing. This is an example of using a GPT that already exists, but there is a lot of value in helping you to understand how you can build your own GPT. So that is what I'm going to do now. To build a GPT, you come to Explore GPTs and you head to Create. This is where you can build your own GPT to help you automate a specific task. Let's imagine, same theme as earlier, that I'm preparing for a series of customer meetings. Specifically, I have one upcoming meeting with this customer who is in the finance industry. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a GPT called Meeting Mate. And Meeting Mate is going to ensure that I am really well prepared for all of my customer meetings. It's going to provide me with a standardized agenda and way to format the agenda. And it's also going to provide policy guidelines, travel guidelines to help me understand if I can facilitate a in-person meeting or maybe a virtual meeting. Now, when I come into the GPT, I am met by this screen here. This is the Create and Configure screen. By default, when you enter this view, you will be dropped into the Configure tab. You can also build a GPT using the Create tab. So the key difference is here. If I'm not sure exactly how I want to create my GPT, I can engage in a conversation in this tab, and I can start to work with the GPT builder to actually build out the GPT. All of the answers that appear in this view here will then be pulled across into the Configure tab for you. Now, for the sake of this demo, I want to show you the Configure tab. Personally, I always use this tab as it gives me a really high level of control over the instructions. And top tip, the instructions in this section here are the most important aspect of creating a really great GPT. So let me show you how this works. First, I'm going to give the GPT a name. We're calling this specific GPT Meeting Mate. We're then going to add in a description. And the description is what a user sees when they engage in a conversation with a GPT. So top tip from me, please don't underestimate the importance of a really clear and concise description. For this GPT, I want users to know that it helps them with preparing for external meetings. Let's add that in now. Here, I'm saying that Meeting Mate helps you prepare for external meetings by offering personalized agendas, attendee insights, communication tips, and cultural etiquette advice. Now, let's walk through the instructions. The instructions tells the GPT exactly how it is supposed to operate. Again, instructions is the most important section within the configuration tab. So let me walk you through best practices. The first thing I'm going to do is add an overview into the instruction. So think about this as the statement of intent. It's very similar to the description, but essentially I'm saying you are Meeting Mate. an AI assistant that helps users prepare for external meetings by offering agendas, attendee insights, communication tips, and cultural advice. We're then going to add in a series of step-by-step instructions. What you'll notice is all of my instructions have been formatted in Markdown. Markdown is a specific formatting language, and the model responds really well to Markdown. If you want to first create your instructions without formatting, top tip, you can simply copy and paste your instructions. You can drop those instructions into ChatGPT and actually select O3. And you can ask O3 to reformat your instructions in Markdown language. So don't worry if you don't know how to format in this way, if you're a little bit confused. O3 and reasoning models can do this formatting for you. So top tip from me to help you actually create these instructions. Here we're saying to the GPT that the first step is to greet the user when they engage with the GPT. So we want to see a greeting that says, "Hello, how can I assist you in preparing for the meeting?" The next thing we want the GPT to do is ask for key details. So to make sure that the user gets a really valuable plan and agenda, we want the details about the meeting. So what is the goal of the meeting? Who will be attending? When is it scheduled? And you can see that we are clearly numbering the steps that we want the GPT to take to complete the task. Let's add in step 3. We then want the GPT to provide tailored assistance by reading the documentation that's been added into the knowledge section. And really the knowledge section is where you upload key documents. And these documents are referenced by the GPT, and they are essentially what makes it a domain expert. So we're giving some pointers here that we want specific documents to be reviewed to make sure that the guidance given is really relevant. And then finally, we are going to add in some guidelines. Guidelines are additional parameters for the model to follow. So here we're saying that we want the output to be friendly and professional. We want the GPT to focus on accuracy and clarity. And we also want the GPT to acknowledge when a query falls outside of its accessible knowledge. Really, we want the GPT to redirect the user to a human if it can't answer the question. So these are relatively straightforward instructions, but just to recap, we have an overview to tell the GPT what it is doing. We are formatting the instructions using Markdown, and you can use O3 to help you create this format. We are adding in step-by-step instructions and being very clear about what we want the GPT to do at each stage. And we're wrapping up with some guidelines to help direct the GPT to a specific output. What we're going to do is we're going to close that, and I'm going to scroll down and talk a little bit more about other capabilities within the GPT. The conversation starter is essentially a pre-loaded prompt. It will appear as a box in the center of a screen when the user comes to interact with the GPT. You will have noticed when I was using the professional writing coach, there was a series of prompts that I could click to begin that conversation. In this example, I'm adding in a prompt that says, "Help me prepare for an upcoming virtual meeting with a new finance client." Again, I would recommend adding 2 to 3 conversation starters. They really help a user to understand what types of questions they should ask. Now, moving on to the knowledge section. What we're going to do is we're going to upload a series of files. Let's add in these files. And you will notice that these are files like a template for meeting agendas, a travel policy guide, corporate guide for navigating meetings and best practices, and our policy around remote working and virtual meetings. So we're going to open those and we're going to scroll down. I want to talk a little bit about capabilities. Capabilities allow you to enhance how your GPT performs. For example, we might want the GPT to help us create really great blog posts or writing pieces, in which case we want to turn Canvas on. You also have the ability to use image generation, which we discussed in 101. You can turn on web search. And there's really no harm in turning all of these capabilities on if you want all of them to be leveraged. But I would encourage, for more focus and direction, that you really only select the capabilities that you think you're going to use. One capability that is incredibly important that you'll probably need turned on 8 out of 10 times. This is the code interpreter and data analysis capability. Essentially, when this is enabled, the GPT is able to analyze data. It can work with the files that you've uploaded into Knowledge, and it can also help to generate downloadable files as well. So if you ever want a PDF or a Word document or an Excel, this is a really important capability. Here, I'm going to turn that on, and I'm also going to turn on Canvas as well. Maybe I want a series of really great meeting agendas, and I want that in a nice to read Word document format. I'm not going to have time to configure an action today, but I do want to talk briefly about actions. Actions is the ability for you to connect your GPT into an external system. You have the option here to configure an API key or also OAuth as well. That is going to allow you to do that in this view. You can enter in your API schema, and you also have the ability to actually test that action to make sure that an API is doing the right push and pull. Again, actions can be really powerful if you don't want to simply have static documentation in the knowledge. You might want to configure an API call to go to a knowledge bank or a repository and actually pull in information from a live data set or knowledge bank. Coming back from actions, and actually just on that note, I have linked in the docs section of this webinar a link to an actions cookbook. So if you are interested to understand how to configure actions, that resource is going to be really valuable to you. Great, so we're really at the stage where our GPT is ready to go. Last thing we want to do is we're just going to flip on image generation for a second, and we're going to create a profile picture. The profile picture is what you see on the left-hand side when you pin the GPT to your sidebar. So there we have an image. Again, if I wanted to change that, I can simply upload the photo from my local drive, or I could also reuse DALL-E again. Just going to flip image generation off. I no longer want that. And really what we're going to do now is we're actually going to publish the GPT. So one thing to note is that the preview window is really where you can test the performance of the GPT. So if I enter in something like hi, what you'll notice is the GPT responds in exactly the way that we wanted. So if you remember, in our instructions, we were really specific that we wanted the GPT to start by greeting us, and the next step is to collect specific insights from the user to help with the task. So we have a greeting here, and we also have a list of things that we need to provide the GPT. So the preview window is a really great way to test if your instructions are working. Now, obviously, if you don't get the response that you're looking for in the preview window, this is where you should come back. You should iterate and change your instructions until it works. And again, AI and ChatGPT and GPTs are not 100% perfect. There really is this mindset of experimentation and iteration that we need to adopt to make this technology work. So there might be some level of frustration when you first start out, but honestly, once you get the hang of creating these instructions in this style, I have found that my GPTs are really responsive and they work very well. Now that we're happy with that preview, what I'm going to do is I am going to click Create. Now, by default, what you will see is we have the ability to invite people or add people from my workspace. But by default, this GPT is private to me. So when I publish it, only I can see the GPT. I can also publish it to my workspace, so the OpenAI education team, and I can also give access to anyone using a link as well. Again, your company admin or organization admin may not give you access to share GPTs, especially across your workspace. So again, your view and your access level might be different to mine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Update, and Update means publish, which means that it is going to appear in my ChatGPT environment. We are going to click View GPT, and we are now going to test it. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to click Help me prepare for an upcoming virtual meeting. We've got that response again, and let's go through and answer some of these questions. The main objective really here is to educate the customer on AI use cases. We have the CEO and the COO attending. Date and time, let's make it for June 15th. Location, we are going to do virtual. And 5, this is really an AI use case consultation. So let's send that across and let's see what the GPT does. First of all, we get a really nice suggested gender. So remember that the GPT is reading that knowledge in the back end and understanding the design for an agenda or how OpenAI likes to structure an agenda. And then it is giving me a series of examples. So this is incredibly helpful. I then get a section here on how to prepare for the company. So I'm being told that I need to research the company, take a look at LinkedIn insights and materials. Again, this is maybe where I would go back to deep research and explore some more topics. We get some really great meeting best practices based on our HR policies and guidelines. I've got some communication tips specifically for working with C-level executives. We have some cultural considerations. So the GPT has picked up that this meeting is in New York, and also some suggested materials to share ahead of time. This is so helpful. In less than 20 minutes, we've created a GPT that allows me to prepare for meetings in a standardized way every time. It is reading key documents that relate to my business and how it works, and it's giving me targeted suggestions. A GPT can really be created for anything. It's really designed to help speed you up, to standardize an output every time, and to help you on some of those monotonous tasks. So this week, I want to encourage you to think about what you're working on. Think about the areas that you want to automate, and I want to encourage you to create a GPT using that markdown format and structure that I've introduced you to today. So that really brings us to the end of our session. I hope it was useful. I hope you got some tips and tricks. Essentially, we've taken a look at deep research, which is a new agentic capability, and that is going to help you deeply understand and explore topics. We've looked at projects to help you streamline and structure your workplace. And then we've looked at some best practices for building a GPT to help you automate specific tasks. Thank you so much for your time today. We would love it if you could take a couple of minutes to just fill out a quick survey to help us understand how we can improve. But again, get chatting this week, explore everything we've discussed today, and thank you so much for your time.